HIV and viruses. HIV and AIDS. HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus, is a virus that affects the immune system. It eventually leads to acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or AIDS. AIDS is where the immune system deteriorates and ultimately fails. This makes someone with AIDS more vulnerable to other infections like pneumonia. HIV host cells. HIV infects and kills helper T cells, which act as host cells for the virus. Helper T cells release chemical signals that activate phagocytosis, cytotoxic T cells and B cells, so they're very important in the immune response. Without enough helper T cells, the immune system is unable to mount an effective response to infections because other immune system cells don't react. People infected with HIV develop AIDS when the helper T cell numbers in their body reach a critically low level. Initial infection. In the initial infection period, HIV replicates rapidly and the infected person may have flu-like symptoms. After this period, HIV replication drops to a lower level. This is the latency period. During the latency period, which can last for years, the infected person won't experience symptoms. The symptoms of AIDS. People with HIV are classed as having AIDS when the symptoms of their failing immune system develop or their helper T cell count drops below a critical level. The length of time between infection with HIV and the development of AIDS varies. Without treatment, it's usually 10 years. People with AIDS generally develop diseases that wouldn't cause serious problems in healthy people. The initial symptoms of AIDS include minor infections of mucous membranes, for instance inside the nose, and also recurring respiratory infections. As AIDS progresses, the number of immune cells decreases further. Patients become susceptible to more serious infections, like chronic diarrhea, severe bacterial infections, and tuberculosis. In the late stages of AIDS, patients have a low number of T cells and can develop a range of serious infections, like toxoplasmosis of the brain and candidiasis of the respiratory system. It's these serious infections that kill AIDS patients. The time people survive with AIDS varies. Factors that affect progression of HIV to AIDS and survival time with AIDS include existing infections, the strain of HIV contracted, age, and access to healthcare. HIV structure. The virus has a spherical structure. It's made up of a core, which contains genetic material, which is RNA, and proteins, including the enzyme reverse transcriptase. It has an outer coating of protein, called the capsid, and an extra outer layer or envelope, which is made of membrane stolen from the membrane of a host cell. Sticking out from the envelope, there are lots of attachment proteins that help HIV attach to the host helper T cell. HIV replication. HIV and all viruses can only reproduce inside the cells of the infected organism. HIV replicates inside the helper T cells of the host. It doesn't have the equipment, enzymes and ribosomes to replicate on its own. HIV replication. The attachment protein attaches to a receptor on the cell membrane of the host helper T cell. The capsid is released into the cell where it releases the DNA into the cytoplasm. Inside the cell, reverse transcriptase is used to make a complementary strand of DNA from the viral RNA. Double-stranded DNA is made and inserted into the human DNA. Host cell enzymes are used to make viral proteins from the viral DNA within the human DNA. The viral proteins are assembled into new viruses, which bud off from the cell and infect other cells. Antibiotics and viruses. Antibiotics kill bacteria by interfering with their metabolic reactions. They target the bacterial enzymes and ribosomes in these reactions. Bacterial enzymes and ribosomes are different from human enzymes and ribosomes. Antibiotics are designed to only target bacterial ones, so they don't damage human cells. Viruses don't have their own enzymes and ribosomes. They use the host's. So as human viruses use human enzymes to replicate, antibiotics can't inhibit them. Most antiviral drugs are designed to target the few virus-specific enzymes. These are enzymes that only the viruses use. For an example, HIV uses reverse transcriptase to replicate. Human cells don't use this, so drugs can be designed to inhibit it without affecting the host. These are called reverse transcriptase inhibitors. There's no cure for HIV, but antiviral drugs can slow down the progression of HIV and AIDS. The best way to control HIV infection in a population is by reducing its spread. HIV can be spread via unprotected sexual intercourse, through infected bodily fluids, and from a HIV-positive mother to a fetus. Not all babies from HIV-positive mothers are born infected, and taking antiviral drugs during pregnancy can reduce the chance of the baby being HIV positive. An example 6-mark question or answer about how HIV infects the host cells. So, HIV contains reverse transcriptase. This enzyme uses HIV RNA to make a DNA copy. The DNA is then joined to the host cell's DNA. The DNA is used to make HIV RNA copies and HIV capsid proteins and enzymes. These are made at the host's ribosomes. They then assemble new virus particles and they bud off from the membrane of the host cell.